All right, so it's 2 o'clock. Let's get rolling. A couple of things, just kind of ground rules. Let me start the recording. Actually, no, that's already happening. All right, good. Okay, cool. So apologies, I set up the room today with a waiting room. So I'm going to have to kind of monitor that and admit people as they go. It might be a little bit distracting. Feel free to open up the chat window and drop any questions in there if you don't want to unmute and interrupt me and ask it that way, but you're welcome to do that. Please keep yourself muted until you want to actually interact. At that point, and again, feel free to unmute yourself, ask a question. I really want this to be as driven by you guys as much as possible. I do have an agenda. Let me open that up real quick. All right, so I'm going to share the screen, desktop one. All right, there we go. Okay, so today's agenda will be, we're kind of changing up the format. I used to do sort of these long couple-hour sessions on each topic or each tier, all the different features, deep dives. This is going to be sort of a three-part overview. We're not going to go super deep, but we are going to hit most of the big areas over the next 3 days. Today's going to be the longest session. We'll go about an hour, and I can go longer if we need to. If you guys have questions, feel free to hang out afterwards, and we can go into specifics. And then tomorrow and the next day, we're going to do shorter sessions, but again, we'll make that longer if there's Q&A. And today's going to be more of the intro basic level, and then we will go into the other tiers and some of the more involved, more expert level features tomorrow and the next day. So today we're going to cover sort of zero to hero, what it really takes to get from I've never used SkyGlass before to minimum proficiency. We'll talk about the differences between mill mode and standard mode. We're going to go over how to change your home location and some of the must-know aspects of changing your home location. We'll give you sort of a very quick crash course on the watch lists. And then we're also going to talk about the aircraft database and how to build up your watch list quickly using the database. And then we'll cover the brand new feature, Save Setups, which I'm super excited about. And this feature will really be useful to you once you get the basics down. And I think it'll be a sort of a high utility function for folks that want to kind of switch between, mission profiles, as I say. And then part 2 and part 3, we're going to get into Pro level and Pro Plus level features, 3D airspaces, the animated weather overlay, geofencing, and then watch list alerts, which is part of the Overwatch feature. And then the last day, we'll get into 3D airmets and sigmets, some of the stuff that you will only find in SkyGlass. I don't think that that's anywhere else available. And then we'll also talk about flight history reporting, some of the capabilities of doing those exports, aircraft performance circles, and then I'm going to save the last day for some kind of undocumented features and tips and tricks. There's one actually in the database that's brand new, which was a monkey suggestion or request. So before I get started, I got a couple people here. Here we go. Let me get them. Excellent. Welcome our newcomers. Before I get started, anybody want to highlight something that isn't necessarily on this list, but you really want to get covered today? Feel free to, again, drop that in the chat, or if you want to unmute yourself and let me know, that's fine too. And when will this recording be available? Yes, this recording will be available once probably the next couple of days. I'll post it on my website and also on the YouTube channel. Personally, I think the YouTube channel is a little bit better experience just for able to navigate through videos and things like that, but both places. Okay.
The one thing I'd like to ask is, I noticed when I changed with the upgrade, I have it downstairs on my Mac now and upstairs on Windows. But on my Mac downstairs, I don't have, when you hover over, it doesn't tell you where the location of the plane is. And I don't know how to get that on here, down here.
Awesome. Okay, perfect. I appreciate that. And so I'll spend a little bit of time talking about how to synchronize 2 machines, because there's a very easy way to do that on the watch list level. But specific to your question, just bookmark this. That's a HUD question, a heads-up display, which is sort of the top right-hand corner. So I'll definitely cover that when we get into that part of the UI. Thank you so much. Awesome. Okay, let's get started. All right, so I'm going to reorganize my UI just a little bit. And Ren, if I can ask you again, if I missed something in the chat, feel free to flag me down and get my attention, and I can answer those questions. All right. Oh, and that's not going to let me do that. All right, maybe I can do this. Sorry, as I reformat my display here. There we go. Now I can see everybody. Perfect. And the chat and the waiting room. Good stuff. All right. By a quick show of hands, so again, I'll just reiterate, feel free to turn your camera on so I can see, gauge people's responses and interaction, and then you can kind of raise your hand, that kind of stuff as well. Very helpful for me to keep the class moving forward if I can see everybody's faces. Awesome. Excellent. Thanks, Ron. Good stuff. Okay. So as we get started, so I have logged myself into a basic level account. So this should be exactly what you see when you start SkyGlass. You'll notice the first thing I did was adjust my user interface scale. And that is this very top of the main button stack, which is on the bottom right-hand corner. We've got a couple of chevrons up and down. Grab that, that's a handle, and then drag it up to scale your entire user face up and down. So I'm going to make this sort of abnormally large today, just to make sure everybody can see all the everything that I'm doing, and then I'll adjust it as I move forward. Couple things that are on automatically with SkyGlass when you first get rolling by default. We've got a map style, which is the satellite view, and you're in mill mode, and you're also in auto refresh mode. So you're kind of set up to do sort of millcraft monitoring. All right, and so couple quick things before I get into the sort of critical features of the UI, how I'm going to refer to stuff. This first bar on the bottom right-hand corner, that's the main button stack, okay? That is sort of the core of the user interface. And then as you turn things on and off, things will build out to the bottom left, all right? And so you'll see that as we move forward here. For example, I'll turn off the auto refresh, and you'll see this little panel here went away. Turn that back on. So you'll see as you turn things on and off, it kind of dynamically adjusts to what you want to see at any one time. I'll also mention the pop-up help is on by default. I think this is a great way for people to get started, to understand all the different functions. Just hover over a button and it'll give you did somebody, okay, feel free to please mute yourself unless you actually want to talk. Let me get some people brought in from the waiting room. Okay, cool. So if you want to interact, feel free to unmute yourself, but if you're not, go ahead and mute yourself. That's perfect. Thanks, guys. All right, awesome. Boy, they're all rolling in now. Sorry for the distraction. All right. There we go. Okay, so again, feel free to mute yourself. Got a couple of folks that are unmuted right now. I'll go ahead and mute you. Okay, cool. All right. Hey, Mike, welcome, sir. Good to see you. He's got an impressive setup there.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Good stuff. Good to see you again. All right. Okay, good. Thanks, Dennis. Okay, so back to the user interface. So again, we've got the main button stack. Auto refresh is on by default, and we've got this pop-up help that's enabled. I'm going to go ahead and turn this off for now, just so it's not going to be distracting me. But feel free to keep this on as you're learning SkyGlass. Incidentally, there are sort of three states. There's an off state, and then there's two on states. There's an on hover near the mouse, and then there's the next state, which is sort of a fixed location above the auxiliary button stack. Just if you want it, this is kind of how it was before, so I left that in there. But I'm going to turn it off for now. All right, and by show of hands, is this scale suitable for people to see? Can you see the user interface okay? Thumbs up, good. You can see my mouse moving around. Got a big circle around it, so that's all good. Okay, great, that's going to be captured well. All right, perfect. Okay, so when you're utilizing SkyGlass, there's sort of three main aspects, which you'll always want to kind of keep your hands on these levers. It's kind of like yoke, throttle, and pedals, you know. So the first thing is the height adjustment slider. This is the sort of first real innovation with SkyGlass, is to stretch and squish the relative heights of all the aircraft that are in the field. And that's in the group of vertical sliders. It's the one on the far right. That's sort of, you know, your main way to, you know, obviously separate out the aircraft from their flight levels. The next one is the aircraft scale, which is that next vertical slider. Okay, and again, this, you know, depending on your screen size, depending on your zoom level, and the different ways that you're going to be interacting with SkyGlass, those are the kind of things you want to kind of keep, you know, tuned to what, you know, how good your eyesight is, that sort of thing. Primarily, though, when you change your map zoom level, then you really want to make those two adjustments. As you zoom in, very often, if your height adjustment slider is up high, you're going to want to bring that down so that you're capturing the full scale of, you know, the high flying aircraft and low flying aircraft. All right. Again, map zoom. As you change your map zoom and zoom in to a certain specific area, you'll want to adjust your height adjustment slider to capture all your high flying aircraft, and then adjust the scale of the aircraft to what's meaningful for you. All right, so let me demonstrate that now. Sort of a preview note about standard mode versus mil mode. When you're in military mode, all military aircraft worldwide are loaded. It has no reference on your search radius or your home location. You can bounce around the map as you need to. If you see I pivot over to the right, you can see the aircraft off in Europe. They're rendered here too, and even off the sides of the map. They're all rendered in mil mode. All right. So let's switch into standard mode, and you'll see immediately the differences. I'm going to switch into the standard mode by clicking on the rank icon, which is the toggle on and off military mode. And you'll see first thing we've got this big green box, all right, and a brand new home location input panel that showed up, all right, and they're kind of joined together. It used to be in SkyGlass, so for some of your early folks, you might be used to this. The other thing you sort of had to have your handle on was your search radius, okay? When you're in standard mode and your search radius is out more than a couple hundred miles, most likely you're going to be overloading your computer unless you've got something that's supercharged, you know, high-end gaming system, because there's just too much traffic. And it's really dependent on your graphics processing unit, so what kind of video card you've got or graphics processing card you've got. And most, you know, average machines just I can't load all traffic all the time. Even with the 2D flight trackers, I don't know if you've really actually taken the time to look at it, but you know, they filter out and only give you the first few hundred, and then as you drill down, they sort of fill in. Okay, in SkyGlass, that's not the case. It'll try and show everything because you can really see a lot more when you're in the 3D space. Okay, but the cost is, you know, it's a high graphics load. So I say all that because when you switch into standard mode, you really have to manage your search radius. And right now, the default is that the search radius is linked to the map view. So as I said, we're going to zoom in a little bit with the map. And I'm just using the plus sign here. You can use the plus sign, or you can grab that slider and move it. We're going to wait for these tiles to load in. All right. A little bit of a latency here, probably.
Go a quick question.
Yes, sir.
From Pieces. So where is SkyGlass pulling the data from? Is it strictly ADS-B?
Right. So I'm a data supplier. My data supplier for SkyGlass is the ADS-B Exchange network. So that's specifically that is defined by, you know, I think there are well over 10,000 now individual feeders like myself, like a bunch of us here that have their, you know, Raspberry Pis with their antennas on the roof, and we're crowdsourcing the data. There are several networks. You know, Flight Radar 24's got a network. FlightAware has a network, I believe. There's an OpenSky, which is more European centric. but ADSB Exchange is, again, worldwide. So that, riffing off your question, that has its limitations. Mostly, all the feeders are terrestrial based. So we don't get coverage out over the oceans, or really more than about 200 miles offshore is where we're going to lose coverage. Because I don't use the swim feed or anything else from the FAA, which requires other levels of filtering, et cetera. That's one of the reasons why I went with ADSB Exchange, is because this is unfiltered data. That's why we can really see the military aircraft and the masked aircraft, et cetera, because it's all pretty kind of much raw data. The transponders coming off the aircraft, broadcasting in an unencrypted frequency band. And so, yeah, does that answer your question? Sure.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, good stuff. Okay, so you'll notice here, this is a good, I'm going to talk about some of the problems that you may run into. You'll notice I got a couple of map tiles that didn't finish loading. In the map zoom area, we've got this little blue circle, which is the reset. If you click on that, it's going to sort of re-query all the tiles and fill in all the gaps if you have any gaps. All right, so what we were talking about is the search radius. And again, we're going to want to limit that before we start loading the data in standard mode. And the easiest way to do that is to use it to zoom in on the map, which when this toggle is on, link search radius to map view, you'll see that box sort of stays just inside the map layer. And you'll notice as I zoom in here, the search radius miles will keep decreasing. So first we want to get that to about 100 miles. We're about there. And while those map tiles come in, what I want to do now is I want to pick a home location. So somebody want to give me their sort of major metro area, and I'll use them as a guinea pig?
KFRG.
AFRG. What's that again?
KFRG. Kilo
Okay,
Fox, Romeo Golf.
Got it. Okay, perfect. So put that into the input panel. And this input panel, by the way, is sort of a natural language processor. It goes out to Google's, their reverse geocoding API. If you put in a 3 or 4 letter airport identifier, then I do my own lookup on this side, try to identify it as a 3, as an airport. And if it does, then it loads that up. But you can put in, Farmdale Airport, and it'll do its best to match that location. So you can put in zip codes, you can put in a street address, pretty much anything. And it actually also will sense if you're military, I can't remember the name of this, but they have their own grid reference system. Actually bake that into SkyGlass as well. So you can put in, if you know what that is, you can put that in and it will actually toggle to that too, as well as the latitude and longitude. So anyway, we're at Farmdale. I'm going to zoom in one more level, and then I'm going to load some traffic. So as you may have noticed, when we switched into standard mode, the auto refresh automatically turned off. All right, so we're not getting any traffic yet. And so next thing we want to do now that we've dialed in the search radius is actually try and load some traffic. So before we do that, I'm going to change my map style to something that's a little less heavy. So if you notice right above the map zoom area, we've got a panel here, little folded map. I'm going to click that. It's going to reveal another map style picker, and I'm going to grab this one, which should be a little bit lighter. It's more of a kind of a green and black look. All right, that should load a little bit faster. All right, perfect. Good stuff. And I've actually just recently changed the style, so you'll notice that the airports are going to show up a little bit higher contrast. I did that on the server side. Anyway, so now that we've got the map dialed in, the top of the main button stack, this main button, this will just pull a snapshot, okay, a one-time grab of the data. If you want to turn auto refresh on, you click there, and then we've got another panel that says how often do you want this auto refresh to be. Again, this is something that you'll want to experiment with, one based on the area that you're looking at, the amount of traffic that's there, which will depend on time of day, that sort of thing, and the search radius as well, and then some of the other features. Meaning, if you've got traces turned on, you'll probably want to lengthen the auto refresh and not make it so fast. But for our purposes now, we can turn this up to 1 second, and it's going to be polling every second and updating the craft. All right, so what's the one thing I haven't done yet that I told you should first do when you start loading traffic and you change your map zoom level? Who got it? Anybody want to jump in? Height adjustment slider, right? Exactly, perfect. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Lance. So, and you'll notice as I start to bring this down, wow, we lost a bunch of aircraft that were sort of not visible on the top, right? Okay, so again, if you want to bring it all the way down, when this slider is at its bottom, that represents actual altitude based on the map zoom level, okay, in this sort of simulation of where the aircraft are. So if you're zoomed in pretty high and a pretty high zoom level, it actually may work to see the actual elevation changes. But if you're at any sort of a regional or country level, it's going to look basically flat. So you'll want to just bump this up to where you get some sort of natural elevation changes. Okay, and then the next step, aircraft size. So I'll bump that up. And you'll notice that the aircraft changes, the size changes, and this little jumper, which gives us the home location readout, is there as well. Okay, so again, just to review, and I'm going to kind of hammer this as we go through it. I really want to cement this in everybody's mind. Change in map zoom, get your home location, and then those two sliders, the height adjustment slider and then the aircraft size. All right, so now that we've got those, I'll show you how to, if you want to untoggle the map zoom and sort of have your manual control of the search radius. So I'm going to turn off the auto refresh just so I can get that loading bar to stop. It's very simple. So you're going to be in this mode to start. You click on the configuration button, and then you've got access to these three. You turn off the link search radius to map view, and now you've got this actual handle that you can adjust your map search radius. All right.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, please.
Where it says the location there, is there any way to get rid of that Farmingdale Republic Airport, or to reduce the size of that? I find that is annoying and in the way a lot.
Yeah, okay, so you can just turn that panel off if you want. Let me show you how to do that. So just to finish, let me finish the configuration of this and then I'll hide it for you. So again, to detoggle the search radius from the map zoom level is that first one. And then I also built in this last revision, when you move your map over to an area significantly outside of your original home, then it's going to rehome to the center of your map. Okay, I did this because people got lost, like, why am I, where is my home location? And then when you do a new home location, things like the in the top left-hand corner, you've got stuff like the local time and the weather, which load based on your home location. So that will automatically update as well. If you want to turn that off and just bounce around on your own, you'll need to keep rehoming to where you want to be. And anyway, you turn that toggle off, and then you can kind of slide around, and the home is not going to follow you around. Okay, but for most people, you want to keep these both on. I'll collapse the configuration. Oh, we got a bunch of people in the waiting room. Ooh, sorry about that. Oops, there we go. All right. Okay, so how do we hide this location input panel? So when you're in standard mode, it's going to pop up until you want to turn it off manually, and that's this icon right here. So right above the map zoom area, you've got the slider, map, and home location. Click on that, and that's going to hide the search radius box, and will also hide the input location. Go ahead.
Yeah, but those words still stay on the screen.
Oh, you mean this jumper here? Yeah,
Yeah.
no problem. Well, let's talk about the jumper next.
Okay.
All right, so the jumper is one of my favorite little widgets. Basically, it is a quick way to move around the map. Is sort of the first level of function. So if you double click on the map, it automatically, the jumper jumps to that location and then moves your camera to the center. So if you're out zoomed out and you want to sort of like, oh, I want to get up here, quickly, easily jump, and then everything sort of moves. And then if you have your home location synced to your to the map and the camera view, then you're automatically rehomed. And so if you're in auto refresh mode, everything kind of, you know, is on autopilot in that sense. So the jumper toggle, let me turn the auto refresh back to something easier, so it's not going to be too distracting. The jumper toggle is this right here. So if you want to turn that widget off, you click on that, and that's going to hide that little widget. And then double clicking on the map has no effect. Okay. There is an undocumented feature. Haven't really put this out there too wide, but if you hold your Shift key down on your keyboard and double click on the map, then it automatically moves, regardless of the jumper state, it will move your camera to that location and rehome you to where you double clicked. So cool little beginning of a short, keyboard shortcuts, which is something that we're going to be starting to really build out with SkyGlass to make it more efficient, but that's kind of the first one you'll enjoy. So hold down the Shift key, double click on the map, and that's going to move your camera, rehome, and very quickly. So let me do that on this airport here. There we go. Okay, so because I really haven't changed my zoom level, I'm not messing around with my height adjustment slider or the aircraft scale. Once you've kind of got those dialed in for your map zoom level, you're pretty much okay. You can bounce around the map as you need to. All right, so did we answer your question, Betty, about?
Yeah, yes, you did. Thank you. It's just sometimes when you're looking at something and you want to get in closer, those words were in your way and you don't know how to get rid of them. So now I do. Thank you.
You bet. You bet. So additionally, let me turn the jumper on, toggle over here. You'll notice that there are three sort of different levels of targets that are on the screen at any one time. Let me make this a little bit larger so it's easier to see more in your face. So when you have the jumper on and you double click, the jumper moves. If you want to make that jumper location your home location, if you hover over that reverse teardrop, turns green, that's a button, click on it, and now you've got your home location. So now you can see we've got three sort of concentric or co-located targets. One is the jumper itself. I'm going to turn that off. You can see that's the one in blue. And then we've got this orange one and the magenta one. So as I'm going to drag the map around, you'll see the magenta one doesn't move. Okay, it's always center of the screen, and that's because that's representing the rotation point of the camera. Okay, so you'll see if I scroll out with my mouse, it's going to get smaller and larger as I zoom in, but it's always going to stay in the center. All right, so that magenta target represents camera pivot point, okay, center of rotation, and then your current home location will be the orange target. All right, so once you sort of get the feel and understand that this is how, you know, how it's displayed, if you don't want to see those anymore and kind of want to visually clean it up, you can turn that toggle off right here. So about in the top quadrant of the auxiliary button stack, you've got this other little trio of widgets. This will toggle on and off the targets. Okay. Now let's say you get yourself.
I have a question.
Sir, go ahead.
Quick. If we could go, we were talking about the search radius and linking it to the map view and related to your search radius. So if I expand my search radius to say 100 miles from my home location, should the map load and fill that green search square?
Yes, essentially. There may be a little bit of a, flex around that. And again, I've coded what the map thinks that search radius is, and then I go out and ask ADSB Exchange, and what I typically see is get a little bit farther outside of that search radius box we'll fill in. Some of it is going to be kind of camera angle, but like as you can see here, you can clearly see these are outside the rendered box. So it's a rough approximation.
Yeah. Okay.
Again.
Well, I think I might be having an issue then because I'm not actually filling up out, like it's not loading out to the edges of my radius box, and I've like reloaded and refreshed the map. So maybe I'm having another issue.
If it continues, let's go offline. I'm happy to do another team
sure.
discussion with you.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll fix that. No problem. But as you can see, this is one of the learnings that I had when I first started with SkyGlass and making this thing is I really didn't understand how untrue typical map views are. Map projections are its own whole science, right? And so even if you look at this, like this looks like a rectangle, not a square, right? But this is technically like literally 50 miles by 50 miles. But when you put it on the map projection, the farther you get away from the equator, the more that starts to stretch out. If you're on the equator, then it's a nice little, square box. But so I've done my best to kind of, to do the approximation as best you can. Anyway, so pivot points, as I was talking about, while we're here, if you haven't already picked up, but I'll just cover it. So it has been covered. Left click drag will translate the map. Right click drag is going to do the rotation. You can actually get up underneath the map and see through. When you get up underneath the map, it will go transparent, so you can actually see the aircraft. But if you ever get yourself into a position where you're like, I don't know how to get my map back correct, that's what this little icon here is. It's the refresh of the camera. Click on that, and it's going to orient the camera to a kind of basic 45-degree down angle of your home location. Okay. Now, next that people also, this was a suggestion from a user. Hey, I want a top-down view, so I made it easy for you. Click on this button here, and it's going to switch you from whatever angle that you're at to a top-down view. With an extra little hit here is when you move to the top view, it is going to automatically bring that height adjustment slider all the way down. So you're losing as much of the 3D parallax that you get with that height adjustment slider. So let me show you the difference. So this is where it's all the way down. As I bring this height adjustment slider up, you'll see everything sort of expands out, and you kind of lose the referential, like this position is over that map area, right? Because of the perspective shift. If you're not really familiar with 3D stuff, that might not make sense to you. So anyway, to reduce that as much as possible, bring the height adjustment slider all the way down, and then you basically flattened it as much as you can, without it being completely flattened and taken all the adjustment out of the altitude. This button remembers where you were before, unless you make a change with the camera. So if I click on it again, it's going to pop you back to the position or the relative angle that you were at beforehand. Yes? Somebody have a question? Nope? Okay. All right, so moving on. So we talked about those three positions there. Let's talk about aircraft and their different labels and the different colors that are represented. So when you were in mill mode, you noticed everything was sort of this orange. That's the color spectrum of military aircraft. I don't see any mill craft in this lineup. Let me zoom out one level and we'll refresh, and we'll probably pick up a couple here. But you'll notice we pretty much got, there's a couple, about 3, 4. So again, I've changed my map zoom. What's the first thing we want to do? Height adjustment slider, make that change. So we get a good separation. And then I'm going to change my scale just so we get something nice and easy to see. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to sort of move in, and so I can just get a couple of aircraft and demonstrate this point. So now we've got all three aircraft showing here, all three different types. So we have blue, magenta, and the yellow-orange, which is milcraft, right? The blue are everything that's not military or masked. Masked is this the magenta color. And if you're not familiar, I'll just cover this briefly. There are two programs within the FAA, LAD and PIA, LADD, and the PIA. LAD stands for Limited Aircraft Data Display, and PIA is Privacy Information Aircraft or something like that. I didn't get that correct perfectly. I just read a news article that said that the PIA system is being expanded, so we'll probably see more of those aircraft over time. But the LAD aircraft are these ones that are rendered in magenta. And it's basically kind of a pay-for-play. You submit your application to the FAA, pay your fee. I have no idea what that is. And then you're basically, the FAA agrees to scrub that aircraft from the public-facing feeds, okay? And when you have a contract or relationship with the FAA and getting their data, you're required to filter, even if you're crowdsourcing your own. ADSB Exchange doesn't have that agreement, so we can get the unfiltered aircraft, and that's why we can easily sort of separate these out. And the separation of that is handled on the surfer side. They come with a flag that says if they're military or masked, so I don't actually do that flagging. That's how the data comes to me. So, so again, if they're masked, then they're on one of those two programs. If they're military, they're going to show up with the orange and yellow, and if they're not part of those two, then they're going to be in the standard. So you got private aircraft, commercial aircraft, everybody else, right? So let me zoom in a little bit closer. And as you see, I'm going to turn off auto refresh so we can get straight to the point here. As I hover over an aircraft, there's a bunch of stuff that pops up above the aircraft, and then that information is mirrored in the top right-hand corner, which is this HUD, this heads-up display. Okay, and as you hover over aircraft, you'll see the data will update. If someone has actually gone out and taken a photograph of that actual aircraft and uploaded it to a service called Plane Spotter, then that's this image here on the top right. That's the actual aircraft. It's not a representation of it. It is a snapshot of that aircraft. There is a little bit of a lag, so if you get an aircraft that doesn't seem to like that one, there we go. So now they match. So if the plane spotter image loads a little bit late, you may want to rehover to kind of make that sync up. But anyway, let me get one. Come on, somebody up there, load. No, we had one. There we go. Okay. So if you click on the image, you'll get a larger image. And then you click on the little icon here, the information will pop you out to the plane spotter website about that page and that aircraft with other aircraft or other pictures of that aircraft if they exist. Anyway, so you've got the same information. So let me cover that. So you've got in the top right-hand corner, we've got the call sign, okay, distinct from the aircraft registration. Okay, this is the call sign that's being broadcast from the transponder. The aircraft, if you didn't know this, the aircraft registration, the tail number, as it's usually called, that's what's painted on the side of the aircraft. That usually does not change in the life of the aircraft, but the call sign can change every flight, or even sometimes a couple times during the flight. That's the the ATC's designator for that aircraft. So for commercial aircraft, you'll often see the flight number like DAL will be Delta Airlines Flight 1392 or whatever it happens to be. For most private aircraft, they're going to be the same as the tail number. So in this case, November 679er Kilo Tango. All right, so we've got the call sign, the aircraft registration, and the country code from that registration. This represents the aircraft type. So this is the short code, the ICAO short code of the type. The next one down, this is the transponder squawk code. So this is squawking 1200, so that means they're not under air traffic control and have not been given a discrete squawk code. Let's get another aircraft here. You can see, oh, not that Cessna. There we go. This one, squawking 3507. Again, this is going to be something that's temporarily attached to the aircraft, so you can't rely on that. Like you can't go back tomorrow and look for this aircraft and think it's going to have the same transponder squawk code, right? That's going to change. And often, in my own experience being a pilot, you may be given a different squawk code as you transition into a different air traffic control area. So that may change as well. So it's unreliable to identify aircraft. The one thing that will stay with that aircraft pretty much between every flight, every day, is the transponder hex code number. And that's this number, or this alphanumeric in magenta here. That is the sort of UUID, if you're familiar with your phones, you know, your unique identifier. That's the unique identifier of that transponder, and that won't change. The only exception to that is the aircraft that are under PIA, which is, again, one of those mass programs. They can actually be assigned a block of transponder hex codes, which they can rotate through. So that's the sort of example, but that's a very small percentage of aircraft. Most aircraft are always going to be the same. So that's really kind of your your unique identifier. Next level up from that would be the registration, aircraft registration. In this example, November 221 or 211 Bravo Zulu. All right, so that's the aircraft information on the top, and then the lower area is the telemetry information. So in this case, we've got aircraft traveling at 12,625 feet. It's going 396 knots. The altitude change is this number there, and then what it's heading is the next, the last number here. If you want to hide this HUD, you can use the button in the top, and that's gonna, you're still gonna get the ones that hover over the aircraft, but you're not gonna get the mirrored information in the HUD. I like the HUD because you can actually turn on some other things, such as you've got some extended telemetry here. So if the transponder is giving out more information, some of that will be here, such as the not just the geometric altitude, but and the barometric altitude, the geometric rate change, altitude change, baro rate change. Some things you'll even get, the true heading, magnetic heading. It all depends on what information the transponder is actually broadcasting. So if it's picking up, it'll be mirrored there. You can also turn on the location. So as you hover, it's going to do a reverse lookup and give you the vector to the nearest metropolitan area. So in this case, 6 miles south-southwest of Waterford, USA, the local time of that aircraft, and the actual latitude and longitude. And it gives you a little lookup of what type of aircraft that is. In case you're unfamiliar with like H-60 being Super Black Hawk. We've got aircraft image wasn't syncing up there. Okay, and then there's also some deeper information. You click on the tower, you'll get more sort of obscure stuff about what the transponder is pushing out, the category of that aircraft, which is sort of a higher level roll up of the type, what the source is. Often you'll get what kind of navigation equipment and what mode it's under, which I think is kind of cool. This one's actually under autopilot with an altitude hold with LNAV, kind of fun. And then some of this other information is the transponder's navigation. I forget actually what Nick and Knack means, but it basically is talking about the level of integrity for the position data, which rolls up to this sort of RAD-C, which means radius and containment, which means that's a sort of approximation of what the reliability of that aircraft position. It's within 75 meters of that latitude and longitude. Okay, so that kind of covers the HUD in brief. If you want to change the labels that are showing for all aircraft, it will not affect what hover is, but that panel is right here. Looks like a little label icon, turn that on, and then we've got this pop-up panel. And so now I'll just kind of cycle through some of these. You can turn on the type, and then the call sign, and the registrations, again, mirrored from the HUD. And then there's the telemetry data, and then you can mix and match as you like. So now we've just got the telemetry, and again, all these scale with the size. So you're gonna have to kind of adjust this as you like based on your settings, your monitor, eyesight level, all that kind of fun stuff. All right, so then if you want to turn off the icons themselves, you can do that here. And so now you're just left with the little chevrons, which represent the actual aircraft position. So let's talk about that. There are 3 colors. Actually, there's 4. There's red, green, and then 2 shades of blue. Red means descending. Green means climbing. Blue, light blue, the sort of cyan, that means level flight. And if it's a darker blue, it means it's on ground. So we've got a good representation of all that in the field here. Now, let me turn the aircraft octagons on. The octagon represents, let me get one right up close. This represents a compass face. So this is the aircraft. This is sort of a rough approximation of its profile based on the type. And then if this were a compass face, this is its heading. So it's a very easy way to look out over the field and kind of get a quick indication of who's going north, south, east, west, etc. Okay, so I covered a lot there. Let me pause and answer any questions.
I love that we're looking at, and I didn't know it was.
Carol, I can't hear you. If you're trying to ask a question, you came in a little bit light. Okay, maybe you didn't want to ask a question. So again, please keep yourself muted unless you want to ask a question, then you can unmute yourself and ask away. Anyone have any questions at this point of anything that I've covered so far? Not seeing any hands in the field here. Anybody? Anyone? All right. How's my pacing? Am I going too fast? Should I slow it down? Okay. Speed up? We're okay? Okay.
Good speed.
Excellent. Go ahead.
That's a good speed, and just do a review every now and then after a while.
Awesome. Okay, good. My own self-critique is that I move too fast, and I always hate that because I hate to be, feeling behind. So, if I was a student. So good. Okay, I'm glad for that feedback. Okay, good stuff. All right, so the one thing I didn't talk about with the labels is the aircraft database. So let's do a weird segue into the aircraft database. So the database icon is a few different places. You'll notice one there's in the HUD. There's also one in the labels. And then there's sort of this master switch right here. So let's do it on the HUD first. So I'll click on the database icon in the HUD. If you haven't loaded the database yet into memory during this session, then you're going to be prompted like this. So we need to load the database. So I'm going to say OK, and then you'll see this little progress bar along the bottom saying, yep, we're loading the database. Wait until that finishes. I'm going to resize the UI just so we can see that. And you'll see we have a new pop-up here underneath the HUD, aircraft database details. So as I hover, then we're going to get information from the database. So in this example, the owner operator, Learn to Fly CT LLC, and then a little bit deeper information about the model, the year, the hex code. Some of that stuff is already, in the HUD, but I'm just pulled some sort of meaningful fields from the database, and we're populating it here. Once that database is loaded, you can have this up here on the HUD, which is kind of fun, or you can actually turn that on for all aircraft. So now that the database is loaded, we're going to turn that on. Now you can see all the owner operators are listed above each aircraft. Maybe very interesting, especially if you like trying to plane spot over your own AO. You're like, hey, who's above me? You can actually look up the registered owner operator is for that aircraft. And then you can do it en masse here, or you can turn that off. Once we have it loaded, though, the database, then it becomes a field also in the pop-up, which you can see here. For military aircraft, basically you're going to get, that it's military. I actually do a secondary lookup of the country of the registration. So you'll see, obviously for US, you're going to get mostly US military. Okay, so database. So okay, let's now transition into watch list. Actually, hold on. Let me get to my agenda and make sure I'm not skipping over anything. Okay, so we covered master scale, map zoom, height adjustment slider, aircraft scale, which are the three main levers to keep your hands on at all times. We talked about mil versus standard mode. We talked about changing your home location. We're still in standard mode now. Yeah, let's get into watch list now. All right, so first thing before I actually open up the watch list panel is, let's say you're looking at the field of aircraft and you're like, I see an interesting aircraft, I want to put that on my watch list. Easiest way to do that, there are several ways. Easiest way to do that is hover, right click. Okay, right-clicking, and you'll see the aircraft octagon border change color, and that represents this is now on my watch list. All right, so let me do that again to this H60. Right-click, and you'll see the background and the octagon color will change now. The aircraft profile icon color will remain what class it is, but the border of the octagon will now show that it's on my watch list. So let me just kind of willy-nilly grab a few more. Grab that mask guy, boom. Okay, so now we've got a few aircraft on my watch list, right? So now let's open up the watch list. Watch list icon is about halfway up, this banner with the 2 stars. Click there. All right, so a couple things happened that may have been a little disconcerting. First, you'll notice all the other aircraft went away, all right? We're not in auto refresh mode, okay? And there's sort of an auto sweep that happens if the aircraft is stale, meaning it hasn't been updated in the last 3 auto refresh cycle times. So in this case, I think we're probably at 30 seconds. So if it hasn't been updated in about 1.5 minutes, then it's going to get wiped from view. When you open up the watch list, it does a refresh of all the aircraft in your watch list. So that's why everybody else went away. So if we turn on auto refresh again, everybody will come back. And you'll notice here this bottom bar, which kind of is a larger loading. If I click that snapshot again, you'll see a couple things happen. One, it's going to load the traffic within the search radius, and then it will load the watch list aircraft. And it does that in batches of like a couple hundred. And you can actually adjust that in the preferences, how big that batch is. But in this case, it's going to be very fast. All right, so the watch list is up. When you add new aircraft to a watch list, it's going to go in an unassigned group. You can change groups and create new groups, etc. We'll get into that a little bit later when I open up the database. But you can see we've got in the aircraft watch list interface here. Let me clean this up a little bit. Okay, we've got some basic information. We've got the aircraft hex code, the call sign, and the type, and then we've got the aircraft profile, and then we've got a little bit of a triangle if it's climbing or descending. Most of these are descending. We've got one that's climbing. There are a few different ways to show this kind of the master view of this watch list. If you click on the top right corner, the watch list header, we get a little pop out, and then this icon here will change how the list is displayed. So this is sort of the standard way of hex, call sign, type. And let me reload the watch list. And then if you go to the next one, we've got the aircraft call sign, and then it's basic location lookup. So this is kind of an easy way to look through your watch list quickly and go, oh, this guy's up, especially if you're like at a continental view, you can be like, oh, he's over in New York, or he's over California, or whatever. All right. And then the next one is more of a telemetry view. So we've got call sign again, and then ground speed, elevation, vertical speed. So a little bit deeper of what it's doing, speed, etc. So if you know what you're looking for, you can kind of tell, oh, he's in cruise flight. Oh, he's coming in for approach, he's taking off, whatever. Make sense? All right, good stuff. Okay, so I'm gonna get this back to the sort of the standard view. So again, just clicking on that icon will just cycle through the 3 different ways to view your watch list. This one I'll notice want to mention, as you build up your watch list, you're gonna have a lot more aircraft. If you've got a large list that are off ground, that are not flying, not active versus on ground. So if you turn this on, it's only going to show the aircraft in the list that are actually flying. Okay, so now let's segue into building your watch list via the database. All right, so I'm going to hide that pop-up panel and make this a little bit smaller. I'm going to click on the database window, or the database icon, and then we get this larger database interface. So for our purposes right now, I'm going to turn off auto refreshes because we don't need to be taking up those cycles. I'm going to move this, extend it out a little bit more, so we've got all the columns listed. And let's review the interface for searching. So all your sort of, parameters are on the left here. Your input panel is right here. Obviously, there are 4 different ways to search. You can search on the ICA hex code, the transponder unique identifier. You can search on registration. You can search on the aircraft type, which is going to give you a lot of returns. And then you can search on an owner operator, which is a very interesting way to do it. And then you can, for different types of searching, you have different parameters. For type and owner operator, you can do a partial match, right? So for example, if I wanted to look at C-17s, I could put in C-17, but if I have that partial match on, it's also going to give me Cessna 172s, right? So you got to think about what you're searching for and kind of what the returns are going to be. There are about 644,000 aircraft entries in the database, and that changes every day. It's updated daily. You can refresh your database at the bottom here, clicking on refresh database. My copy is about a week old.
What? A couple hours ago.
Hey, Tom, you want to mute yourself, buddy?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No worries. Okay.
How did you get that box open right there? I was closing out the icon and then I missed what you did.
No problem. So let me close the database.
Sorry.
No problem. Let me close the database, which is this bottom left-hand corner. And to open that interface up, you can click on the database icon and the auxiliary button stack. The other way to do it, once the database is loaded, you'll see we've got this other database pop-up panel. This represents the user interface. You can click on that to open this up again. If you want to unload the database and kind of take it out of memory and all those extra features that come when they're loaded, this is what you click on there, is sort of cancel the database. So I'll use this button now to bring up the user interface again. All right, great. So again, different ways to search, and you'll want to, I kind of set up the defaults for what most people will use, but you'll want to experiment with them. There is now a filter. This is sort of new in 2.1 point something. There is a filter for class, so you can actually show only military, LAD, PIA, or standard. So if you want to just search on military, you can turn that on, which is kind of cool. Again, user suggestion. Monkey's a huge fan of this one. And now there's also a country filter as well. So it's automatic. It's already gone out through the database, captured a list of all the different countries that are represented, and now you can filter by country. So if you wanted to look at, like, I just want to see military Egyptian aircraft, this is an undocumented feature. I want you to pay attention here. So let's do that. Let's look at military Egyptian, right? But open. So click on Egypt, turn that country filter on. We'll show only military. We're going to go to type, and in the entry box, I'm going to put in an asterisk. And I have limit returns on, which means that it's only going to grab this number and then it's going to stop displaying. Okay, this is to keep you out of a very frustrating cul-de-sac of, like, I've got a runaway return. I put it to C-17s and I'm getting all the Cessna 172s, which there are thousands, right? So you want to keep the limit returns on and just kind of work with it. So click on search. Now it's going to search a database, and now I've got all Egyptian military aircraft, and I didn't actually max it. You can see the number of returns here, 52. If this was 100, then what I want to do is clear up this limit returns to like 200 or 250, and just kind of keep going until you get, capture the amount. Again, this is all based on how much memory you've got. Each one of these little entries take up a little bit of memory. So 1,000 returns, may take a while to render on your computer. Anyway, so, all right, so let's do this.
Can you do a search on historical search to see, like, what happened in Miami January 1st?
That's not part of the database, but yes, there is a time travel mode. We can get into that. Don't usually cover that in this, but we'll do it. I love it. So as soon as we're done with the database and building your database up, then I'll do a quick overview of time travel mode. Okay?
Now,
So,
the ones you just did for Egypt, those are aircraft, but not necessarily up aircraft.
this is just searching the database, right? Not live
Right.
aircraft.
Okay.
Exactly
Yep.
right. Exactly right. So this is all aircraft that are in the database. pretty much that, anything that's been crowdsourced into the database by ADSB Exchange. All right, so let's do drones. Let's do a Q9.
Is there a column that says that it's either up or not?
No.
Okay.
No.
You would have to add it to a watch list, right? And then
That would be the way. Yeah. To do a single aircraft lookup is actually, I can do them in batches like I do with a watch list, but it just takes up bandwidth, so I don't do that automatically. But yeah, that would be the way to do it. So let's do it. I'm going to turn off the show only military. I'm going to turn off show country, and I'm going to limit returns. We've got Q9. We've got type listed. We're all set up. So let me hit search. Whoops. Let me clear. Oh, I think I just found a bug. Let's do it again. Oh man. All right.
Q9 is for drones?
That is a drone. Yes, that's the Predator drones. If I think right, if I'm correct. All right. So let's do here. Clear partial match. This should work. Oh, I've got myself into a Murphy's moment here.
So as you know, these strange drones have been flying over New York, New Jersey, off the coast. Are they showing up on the SkyGlass?
So that's a great question. Should have anticipated that. So the two caveats for is it going to show up in SkyGlass are sort of the basic is, does it have an actual transponder that's transponding on ADSB, the frequency protocol, right, which is a specific frequency band. It's not totally limited to that. There are two frequency bands. 1090 is the 1090 megahertz is ADSB, the old mode S, which is 978. So it has to have a transponder on and broadcasting for it to be even available to be picked up in the system. The next caveat is it in line of sight of a feeder, right? People like me that have little Raspberry Pis and the antennas. If those two criteria are met, then it's going to render in SkyGlass, so long as you've got your settings set to show it, right? So military aircraft, they have multiple parallel transponding systems. There's military only, and then there's civilian. If they have their civilian transponder on and broadcasting, then you'll pick them up. But if you guys are like MonkeyWorks watchers, you'll see that they're tankers, right, that are orbiting, but you never see any of the fighters. It's because the fighters don't have their civilian transponders on. That's why you're not able to see them. So it's kind of a longer end run to the question of drones, but that's the answer. So it has to have a transponder on, has to be within view of a feeder, and then it'll be picked up by the system and able to be displayed. And then it also goes in the historical record as well. So you'll be able to, if you go into time travel mode, and pick it up that way. Pieces, you have your hand up. Do you have a question, sir?
Yes, a couple there. So you said mode S, so ADSB or mode S is going to be captured. Is that correct?
Yes. So the feeders, and that really depends on the feeder. In most metropolitan area, there's so much duplication of coverage that you're going to pretty much get it. In some of the more remote areas, and again, this is line of sight. So if you've got what am I trying to say? The firefighting operations that are down in a valley, right? Unless there's a feeder within line of sight of that valley, we're not going to pick them up, okay? Because that's going to be in a remote area, coverage is limited, etc. But so on the feeders, there are what's called an SDR, software-defined radio. They're little USB dongles. I can show you one. Here are the little mobile feeders that I sell, and the the dongle is this little USB dongle, small thing. That's what actually, that's the antenna is attached to that, and that's what that filters the signal. If that feeder has a dongle that will see both of those transponder frequency bands, then you're going to see them. So again, major metropolitan areas, there's plenty of feeders that have both the ADSB frequency band 1090 and the 978, which is the mode S. If you get the Warthog, which is the sort of the main feeder that I sell on the website, which I'm a reseller of the ADSB Exchange version, those have both SDRs, software-defined radios, so they're going to be picking up both frequency bands. Does that answer your question?
That is, the second question I had was, can you do a search by call sign? For example, can you do a search for Omaha and have all the aircraft that fly under Omaha call sign show up? Or is that not something that's recorded in the database?
So it is recorded. I'm sorry, let me be clear. If you're searching on live traffic, which we can get into, and we're a little over the hour, so let me make sure I can bang out through everything I wanted to. But let me ask you a question. So there is a way to search on the live aircraft. I am working on a feature which will give partials of a call sign, but it's not implemented yet. So you have to have the exact call sign. And we can work an example of that. So if you know the flight number, you like your track. I guess we're over the hour. Sorry about that. Hold 1 second.
Yeah, we can take this offline after so you can get through the main stuff.
Okay.
No worries.
Okay, it's coming though. It's definitely a feature that I'd like to use, be able to search on sort of wider carrier level, and then that'll be applicable for military aircraft like RCH, Reach aircraft, etc. All right, so let me finish what I was wanting to talk about here, which is let's drop in a type and do a search. And now we've got a bunch of aircraft that are identified from that type. This is interesting because these are the Q9 Reapers. And so you can add them as a group in one shot, all right? So you can, in this lower area, enter a watch list group name. So let's put in Q9er and then add as a group. And you'll notice, let me make this a little bit smaller. Now you'll notice we've got a new group in the watch list of Q9s. None of them are up right now. Let's do that on Q4. I'm sure there's a Q4 that's up right now.
If you have an existing watch list and you enter that name, will it add it to that existing watch list?
So if you have it, if you have the, if it's already part of your watch list, it will move it into a new group of whatever name.
No, I guess what I mean is if you already have a watch list set up and you find an aircraft that you want to add to an existing watch list, will entering the name of it there and then hit that, will it add it to an existing watch list, or is it just, will it only create a new watch list?
It will not. Well, again, if it's already in your watch list, it will move it to this new group. So it's not going to add it twice, but it is going to move it into the group that you define if it is in the search returns and you assign it to this new list. So let me do like Q4, add to group. So if you already tagged it Q4, but it was in the unassigned, then it would move it into this Q4, Q9 group.
I don't think you're understanding my question. No.
Okay, go ahead and ask.
So if you, sorry, so if you've already created a watch list and let's say that aircraft isn't in it, and you, in this search, you find it, and you want to add it to a watch list that you've already created and it's not in that watch list, will it add it to it, or does this feature here, is it only to create new watch lists, is basically what I'm saying.
Right, so okay, great. You can add watch lists, or you can add aircraft from the returns of your searching of the database into the watch list. If you'll notice here, as I expanded the window out, it shows what watch list group it's in. Let me clear and search again, and you'll see they're all here. These are buttons, so if I wanted to add this, let's say, hold on. So if I wanted to remove it from my watch list, I can click on this icon and it's going to turn white, so it's now been removed. In the same way, if I click it again, it's going to add it to my watch list. If you have a name defined as the group, it's going to put it into that group. If that's undefined, then it's going to put it in the unassigned group. So if you were to like search on a tail number, let me just grab something from the HUD here. Move this around a little bit. So I've got an aircraft. I'm going to grab the hex code. If you'll notice, anytime you see in SkyGlass something that turns green when you hover over it, clicking on it will put that information onto your clipboard, your computer clipboard. So call sign, registration, country, hex code. So I grab the hex code. I'm going to come back over to the database, clear the returns, paste that hex code into the search by hex code, hit the search button. Now it's in my list of returns. If I click on the watch list button, now it's been added into that Q4 group. Did that get you there, Lance? I close the loop on that? So if you search on an aircraft, it's not in your list already, you can add it willy-nilly or remove them into a watch list right there.
Yep. Very good. Thank
Okay,
you.
good. Cool. And again, if you want more clarification or want to work some more examples, feel free to find me and we'll do a session. Okay, so basics of that kind of gives you a kind of a primer on how to build up your watch list, searching by groups types. Let me cover one quick thing here, which I think is just fascinating. Let's do DEPT, owner operator. I'm going to clear the returns, do a search. Very interesting results. Puerto Rico Police Department, Texas Department of Transportation. This is how you can kind of troll for different government agencies. They're going to be under departments. And then from here, again, if you want to limit the list, I'm hovering over Mesa Police Department. Click there, clear my returns, paste what was on my clipboard, search, and now I've got a limited list of Mesa Police Department. So if you've got a local area, you want to search on your city name or your state name, quickly get a returns, and then you kind of from there kind of do your own, OSINT work, open source intelligence, and gathering different groups. You search on sheriff, police, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. So any follow-up questions with regard to the database before I move on?
Yeah, could you, because I told you I had originally SkyGlass upstairs on Windows and then I have it down on Mac, but I don't have my watch list from upstairs, which would be Monkey's watch list. How do we get that populated in?
Perfect. So to move your watch list from one device to another, super simple. You've got the watch list open. You go to the pop-out, the auxiliary button stack here from the watch list, and what you want are these two cloud buttons. So there's a couple different ways. This is the sort of fast, easy way. First, on your computer that has the watch list, you'll want to upload. Let me turn on the pop-up help just so we can see it. We want to upload your current watch list from this device to the SkyGlass server under your watch name or your username, right? So it's your private little storage area on my server. Upload it here. Walk over to your other computer, open up your watch list, open up the auxiliary, and then do the download. So it basically has just one copy, your sort of master copy. It's just a quick way to move devices. The other way is to either export it out to disk, and then you can, thumb drive it over to your other computer and load it, or you can share it publicly. Like we've got Monkey's list, as well as a bunch of others. You can download shared watch lists. So if you want to get just other people's watch lists that they've already shared with the group, with the public, click on the download watch list shared by others, and then here's the list, and then you can sort them by name, by number of downloads, number of likes, etc. So we've got our leader here, 350 downloads from Monkey's list, and then just click on this icon, and that'll download the list. I've done a bunch of other searches, like here's one that I built up of law enforcement, Department of Homeland Security, Department of Justice, DPS, etc. You can pull that one. Civil Air Patrol is another easy one to search on from the database. We've got a group of no weather modification birds, etc. So quick one, pop-out window, cloud up, cloud down, and you're there. Okay.
Okay, I got a quick question.
Yes, sir.
When you're doing what you just did, if I were to download Monkey's list and another one, would one overwrite the other one, or would it just add to it?
So there's a bit of a like, what do you want to do? So let's do that now. Let me go here and say, let's pull Monkey's list, and it's going to say, do you want to replace it or add to it?
Ah, okay.
You can do either one. You can blend it, or you can trash what you've got and replace it whole lock, stock, and barrel.
Okay, thank you.
Or you can say, oh, I didn't want to do that, and hit cancel. Cool.
One more question.
Yes, sir.
Go back to the database search in the Q9.
Mm-hmm.
You had military only for the filter.
Correct.
So if you change the filter to standard, is that going to include military or is that going to exclude military?
No, you'll only get the standard aircraft, so it's not, it'll be exclusion of military and masked. Or if you just turn it off, then it's going to be everybody.
Okay, so
Again,
if
this
you
is
turn
only
it off,
for, sorry, go
if you
ahead.
turn it off, the civilian Q9s would show up.
Yes,
Okay, thanks.
which they're only very, very, very limited, right? When General Atomics are doing testing, it may be a non-military at that point. But you actually may know more than I do. I've only seen what I've witnessed, which are very, very, very few Q level civilian drones. Most of them are all military.
Turn on the country filter for US and research.
For the Q9s?
Yeah.
Yeah, so this will give it to us.
That's
Oh,
interesting.
whoops,
wait, type.
owner operator. I gotta do the right type. Okay, clear. We're into so we got the right input, we've got the right type, we've got a partial match, we've got a country filter. All right, should be good to go. There we go.
That's a much bigger list.
True. Yeah. So I stand corrected. So we've got a number of standard aircraft. So they're not showing as a class of military. We've got a couple of LADs. Again, all of these owner operators are the General Atomics. Correct. Yep.
There's
And
your
yeah,
Homeland Security. That's part of what I was looking for, was the Homeland Security, CIA, and all those knuckleheads.
yeah. Very interesting. Very true. Thank you for that question. Great question. And I stand corrected. There was a lot more in here than I anticipated. Yeah, good stuff. We'll also mention there's a very interesting new class of Turkish military drones, B2, if I remember correctly. New manufacturer, Bacharach, or I can't remember the name of it, but let's try it. B2. Clear. Type, boom, bro. Oh, must be B2. Military, oh, not country. That's probably why. I think it is B2.
You've got the United States on there yet. Oh, you took
Yeah, I
it.
just turned that off.
Okay.
But for some reason we got a bug in here. Go look over Turkey under military mode, and you'll see these drones flying. So I don't want to go and get into a rabbit hole here. Ren, will you help me remember to chase that bug down? Okay, so we were talking about shared watch list. Pieces, you had a question that I said I would come back to. I don't think I have it yet.
I think you got it. It was going to be the Q9 question.
Okay, excellent. All right, good
there
stuff.
was a question about searching by call signs, but we're going to get to that after.
Okay, right. So a basic search. So in the auxiliary button stack, top left-hand corner, we've got a little magnifying glass. Click on that, and now you've got a search input box. And there's 4 different types of searching. Let me turn that on. Yeah. You can search by call sign, but again, it has to be specific. Search by aircraft registration or tail number, the transponder squawk code, or the hex code.
So for a call sign, you can't do a partial?
Not yet.
Can you do a?
I'm working on that.
Copy.
Yeah, not yet. It's actually something I just had the impetus to do just a few days ago. So I'm starting to work on that.
Yeah, the reason, just so people don't think I'm just crazy, the reason I'm pushing the Omaha thing is because that's an FBI call sign.
Oh, interesting. I did not know that. All right, cool.
They use it a lot. So, and it's irrespective of the part of the country it's flying over.
And what's the abbreviation of that? Just OM.
The only way I've seen it is literally. Well, I've been out there when they're using it, and they just use the call sign Omaha. So I'm not sure what the abbreviation would be.
Yeah, Customs.
Try to find out.
Customs and Border Protection used to use Omaha by me at Farmingdale. I think they changed it, but they were multi-agency, so they'll work for DEA and everyone else. So Customs and Border Protection will actually lease their helicopter to other agencies. So they used to, I don't know if they're using Omaha anyway for Customs and Border Protection, but they were for a while.
Well, let's check it out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to burn the watch list. So in the auxiliary stack here of the watch list, there's one here. Let's burn it. We're going to clear the watch list. I'm going to go to my shared list and grab the Leo, there it is, Leo, Department of etc. We're going to replace. It's going to load the watch list. We've got a few that are loaded here. I'm going to go back to the map zoom out so we're countrywide. And let me turn on call sign filters or the labels. And do we get lucky? All right, so we're not far enough out yet. Let me get out here. There we go. Okay, so last thing I'm going to talk about, because we're about 20 minutes over, but I do want to cover the new feature, which is save setups. So let me make this a little bit larger, and let's see, do we get any targets here that match? No. Let me turn on the database so we can kind of see who they are. Got a DHS flying under their tail. Troy, don't know what that's about. All right, so it doesn't look like we got anything here that are specific to, and actually we can do that a little bit more. Let me expand DHS. We got Troy's, Border Pro, that's just a balloon, which is always that call sign. Okay, yeah, TPS. Yeah, so I'm not seeing anything particular with what we were talking about, Omahas, et cetera. But okay, very interesting. Something that I will be chasing down. Okay, so save setups. So let me clean up my interface a little bit. I'm going to turn the database off. Turn the database off. Turn off the search. Turn off the aircraft labels. Actually, let me clean that up. There we go. Okay, so the save setups is the little winged heart in the main button stack. Turn that on. You get a new panel there with it's empty at this point. And so basically what this is going to do is this is a way to capture most of the settings that you have that exist right now into one sort of, setup. And that includes what mode that you're in, master military, military or standard. It will capture your home location, your search radius, your watch list status, the label status, the camera position, camera rotation, all that stuff, all wrapped up into one, okay? And it's very simple. Once you have everything that you like set as you want, let me do this. Let's do United States, just we've got a nice something entered into the home location because it captures that too, and that's going to be the name of my saved setup. Click on the plus sign, and now we've got a new saved setup. Okay, so now let me change things a little bit. First thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to alter the name. So we click on this gear wheel, and now this becomes an input panel, and then we've got a couple of options here. So now I'm going to give it a meaningful name. So I'm going to say, well, this is just USA watch list, right? Because my orientation and position, home is over the United States, and my watch list is up. So I'm going to say USA watch list. I'm going to hit enter. Now that's locked in, okay? So next, I am going to change my setup. So let's turn off the watch list. Let's go into military mode. I'm going to make my other adjustments here, scale and size, change the camera angle a little bit more. Okay, boom, new save. It's going to automatically grab the name of my home location and use that as the default name of my new setup. But I'm going to change that quickly. I'm going to say USA Mill, enter. So now all you have to do is click on this button, and it's going to step through all those different settings and set you up. So hands off, it's working, changes the location, changes the camera, opens up the watch list, does the load, good to go. So once you kind of get your orientation around all the different ways to use SkyGlass, this is how you can switch modes and locations super easy, super fast. So let me do military USA. Click. I love this feature. I'm so happy about this. This saves me so much time, right? Oh, I hit the wrong button. Oh, no, I didn't. Okay, I did. Hit the wrong button. goes, you set up for military, setup mode, change the location, change the camera, change the settings. So this includes the height adjustment slider. It includes the scaling. It includes the traces, if you've got those enabled, the trace thickness. Most of the major features, all the toggles and settings and all that, captures it all into one. Home location, even the pro features as well. So
I do have a question while you got this map up.
okay,
One
let me just, before we get into that, and I want to hear your question, but let me
Okay.
wrap up what I was just going to say about save settings. So if you're like, oh, I've got my save setting almost right, but I want to tweak it, right? So make your change. In this case, I'm just going to change the camera angle. Click on the save setups configuration, and then there's this reset in the heart. Click on that, and it updates all your settings to what you have now. Cool? Okay, any questions about save setups before I head back to Thetty and get her question? Okay, cool. Yes, go ahead, Thetty.
The only thing I wanted to ask you, and I have mentioned this on the monkey, this military mode. Now, for us to sit there and pick out other countries that are over here, like if Canada's over here, or the UK's over here, it's so much work. And so I asked Monkey, it would be nice if we had country colors, like if all Russia was, the icon showed up red and we could see if Russia was over here, or all UK could be green.
It's a fair suggestion. When you're out,
It's actually aircraft labels.
Justin, was that you? Did you have a question?
Yeah, that was under aircraft labels.
Aircraft flight levels. Well, so to answer that question, then I'll get back to
No,
Thetty.
no. It's aircraft labels. Aircraft labels.
Labels, right. That's what I was just going to say. If you let's do it. Let's head over to Europe, and then let's turn on the aircraft labels, and then turn on owner operator. So we go labels, and we turn on the database. It's going to load the database again. Then we're going to have the aircraft label. So when you're in the Europe area or anywhere over, not the United States, you're going to see them. It'll be much more visible and easier to see. But again, color would be cool. I've thought about that and actually worked on it a little bit. Doing
like right now we have a Saudi plane over on the East Coast.
Mm-hmm.
But without hovering over each plane, it's not easy to pick out, is all I'm saying. And
I totally get it.
We have a lot of foreign military that are over here, over in Hawaii, up in Alaska. Oh my, some nights you've got 4 different countries up there. It just would be nice if they stood out, because it's hard to find them. It's like looking for a needle, in a haystack, to hover over each one.
Well, so this will save you the time in hovering, but I do get your point. To have a color separation by country would be useful. It's not a trivial thing to code, but I have thought about it, and I'll add that to my list. So thank you. I appreciate the suggestion. So in this mode, again, you turn on the aircraft labels from the database, and at least you've got everybody you can sort of read quickly. Like here, we've got one. I can obviously see that's a Royal Canadian Air Force. We've got a Mexico, a couple of Mexicans down here, Mexican aircraft down here. But again, when it's a lot of aircraft, it might be harder to sort of look through. Adjusting the sizes may help. Adjusting the zoom level, popping up to top-down view might also help. I didn't mention that when you're in top-down view, all of the labels sort of stand up north, so it's everybody's sort of oriented. Whereas if you get off to the side, then things sort of just point to the camera. It can be a little weird when you're at a more top view.
Another way to do that would be on your filter to have a not feature. You have a country option on your filter, you could enter have a not filter like you do.
You know, that is a great, Richard. That's a good suggestion. That's great. So I just something we didn't talk about in the basics, and we're getting a little over time here. I'm fine with staying longer. I just hate to, rope you guys into it if you're not interested. But anyway, in the auxiliary button stack, we've got this type list filter or this type list panel. We open that up. So what I'm kind of hearing, Richard, is we augment the type list panel and we do it by country, which is totally more doable. Way easier than doing a color lookup with the flag and all that stuff. At least we'd have the countries. That's totally doable. Yeah. So to just cover this in brief, sorry, go ahead.
That would be awesome. Amazing. Great idea.
Awesome. So just to kind of cover this very quickly, from the type list category list, used to only be the type list. Now we've added categories. Basically, it surveys what you have in your returns, what's in the field, and then paints the list here. The category is a higher level roll up, right? So like all Piper, 28s and Cessna 172s are all part of the light aircraft. So they're going to be in this category here. Pretty much what I wanted to show you is you can right and left click on these buttons and they'll do two states of filtering. You can either hide that group or category or isolate to that group or category. So let's do light. So we click on left click. It's going to isolate only those light aircraft. And what it's going to do is you'll see it's turned blue, which means it's in isolate mode. We're only looking at those aircrafts. And then it's going to go through the type list and pick all those that are of that known category. Okay. There's a little bit of, it's mushy in the sense that not all aircraft transponders will be broadcasting their category, okay? And if they're not broadcasting their type, then they're going to be in the sort of NA unavailable category, and it's going to get lost in the shuffle here. There's a little bit of extra work that I've done, meaning if it's showing the type, and I have seen that type with a category broadcast before, and I can assign it, I do maintain a list, so it does a little bit of secondary lookups, but if it's something that you haven't encountered yet, then it may just get shuffled into the NA category. Anyway, so in the same way, you can isolate, you can hide. Right click will go through and remove all those from the field, right? So we see Monkey do this all the time. He'll pull the text twos and all the fighters out and that kind of stuff to kind of limit what he's trying to see. You can do that from a broad stroke with the category list, or you can do it just by clicking in the type itself. Right click on the text two, boom, now they're gone from view. Let me make this a little bit easier to see. So I'm going to turn those back on. Now I've flipped it into isolate only the text twos. Click it again, sort of cycles through. So right click is remove, left click isolate, left click again will take it out of isolate. Does that make sense? I know I covered that quick, but this is super powerful. I love this. And I tell you, the category list was a user suggestion from one of the last year's trainings that we incorporated. So won't be too long and we're going to see that country list in here, I bet. Thank you, Theta. Thank you, Richard. That's brilliant. Love it. So much easier. The hard part was like trying to source 200 country flags and colors. Like it just became, and I went out looking, trolling for like, I'm sure somebody's done it right before. And I found a few, but it just was like the resolution and then, but if I could just do a list by text, that's way easier to access and totally doable. We're going to do it. I love it. I'm writing it down. All right. So most likely what I'll do is we'll do a toggle here. We'll flip from type to country back and forth, but it'll be part of the type list panel because it's kind of the interface for lists of aircraft categories and types. All right. Okay. Last little piece before I end with final questions. Let me flip back into standard mode and talk about the classes. We've talked about it. There are 4 classes of aircraft: standard, military, masked, and then emergency. Anything can become an emergency, right? All they have to do is declare an emergency. They may or may not be squawking 7500 or 76 or one of the 7 classes. I've learned, when I was a pilot, you had to tune it to one of those 77 or 7000 to be an emergency. But now air traffic control can keep your discrete squawk code and just call you an emergency, and then you're an emergency aircraft. So there isn't anything can become an emergency. There is an emergency panel that will pop if something that you're loaded in the field pops as an emergency, and this icon is on, then you'll get a special panel for it. Point is, you can filter out if you want to just see like in my search radius military only, you can do that. So let's get into here to I'm gonna shift click on Virginia Beach area. So that's now my home location. I'm gonna zoom in. So we're just kind of getting East Coast, Eastern Seaboard kind of thing. I'm going to turn off the standard, turn off masked, and I'm going to load. So this is now I've got, and again, I've changed my search, my zoom. So we're going to do the 2. So now we've got military only for East Coast. Okay, so this is how you can do it. Search radius, and then turn on these classes as you want. And what it does is it loads all the aircraft that are there and then only displays what you have toggled on or off. So I can toggle that mask back on, toggle the military off, and now we're just looking at masked. In the top right-hand corner, you can see how many total aircraft are loaded. Since I'm under 1,000, I'm probably still safe to actually display these. There were 86 showing, meaning rendered, and then on screen, we've got 51. So I can turn on the standard here, and you can see they'll start to paint. And as you'll see, as it starts to really build up, those last few, it'll start to slow down depending on your graphics processing capabilities. Okay. Anything else? Any questions? Covered everything.
Just a really basic question. What is the easiest way to download and install the latest version?
Well, if you've started or your last version was within the last year, when I put out a new version, I make a little switch on the server that says there's a new version. And when you launch SkyGlass, it'll tell you, hey, there's a new version available. Do you want to download it? If you're on Windows, then it'll download the installer, and then you can just run the installer. So there is kind of an auto update feature, which is sort of takes most of the manual steps out. But you can always just go to the website and get the latest version from the downloads page and go from there.
Gotcha. Thank you.
You bet. For mobile, that's a little bit different, right? Because there's app stores that do their own updates and things like that. So that's going to be a slightly different mechanism. But for desktop, you'll get a notice, and then you can either download it directly or do a manual one. Well, so if you've got a very early version of SkyGlass and you haven't updated, it won't catch that. In that case, if you're on Windows specifically, I'd go to the Add Remove Programs and remove any instance of SkyGlass just so you don't have multiple ones open. Because if your old desktop shortcut is pointed to the old one, it'll get confusing. Great question. James, so sorry for going so over. Just heard somebody else. Another question?
Yes, that's Masterable. Can you hear me yet?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm still trying to figure this thing out. I got some help coming over for tomorrow's thing there, trying to get this camera going, because I'm not very literate on it. But I just check this to see if trying to get the settings right for this microphone there. So sorry to interrupt you there, but at least I know this part of it anyway. Thank you.
No problem. Good to hear your voice. Thanks for jumping in. Awesome.
I know you've helped me a lot on this.
Happy to help. Hey, I will mention here as we close up, I've reformatted how you're going to be doing the trainings, breaking things up into different parts, but there's also a mechanism online on the website where you can actually book some time to either get technical support or to get a demo, or if you are like business-to-business customer, you run an FBO or an operations in some type, and you want to talk about, get a free consult on how we can adjust SkyGlass to fit your needs or do some coding, specific coding for you. You can do that on the website. It's called training and coaching, and then you can book an appointment with me. I've got office hours, etc. So feel free to do that. I get a lot out of interacting with you guys and getting kind of seeing what you want to do and and where the weak points are and helping to strengthen the app. So I appreciate the time. Great. Any other questions before we wrap it up? Appreciate everybody's attention today. It's been a good class.
I have a comment about Canadian aircraft. They're not all required to go to ADS-B for another 5 years. So unless they squawk with the tower, they're going to be invisible.
Yeah. Or unless they've got, well, they still have the old 978, right? They're on Mode S, the old
Yes.
transponders. Yeah. So if they've got a feeder in the area that's picking up the Mode S, then we'll capture them. But that's a great point. There are some definite limitations to the coverage. If you're over any major metropolitan area, you're pretty much going to get ubiquitous coverage. But in some of these outlying areas or a couple hundred miles offshore, et cetera, you will definitely miss it. Or they'll just not be in the system. Oh, time travel mode. It's very simple. Time travel mode is this right below the save setups. It's the globe with the clock on it. Click on that. It's going to tell you, hey, you actually want to do this. You want to switch into time travel mode. Say yes. It's going to clear the field, and basically it's simple. You dial in your time, where you want to go into time travel mode, and your location. Time travel mode is standard mode only, so you got to have your search radius and your location. But basically that's it. You dial it in, place time, and load aircraft. And then you can actually play forward and back. So like, let's go to yesterday. Oops. Let's go to December 1st. I don't know why that happened. Ren, make another note of that. I gotta fix that UI. And then just load aircraft. So this is at that point in time, picking up. And if you play forward, so we're getting a lot of aircraft here because we're out so high. Let me dial this in a little bit more, zoom in, I'm gonna clear. If you haven't noticed, we've got 3 levels of burn down at the bottom. Stop will arrest any loading actions that you're doing. The burn button will remove all aircraft that have been loaded. And then if you've got the airspace in part of your feature set, then that'll clear all the airspace. But now that we're down at 50 miles, that'll be faster. And I'm going to bring that height adjustment slider down. And then you can play forward and back and adjust the step every 5 seconds up to every 5 minutes, and then the speed of refresh. So you have a little bit of a playback speed kind of thing. So this is how you're like, hey, I saw something covering, flying over my area, dial in your location, go to the date and time you want to investigate, and then estimate, and then you can scrub through forward and back.
Just a personal anecdote. I used this mode back when that Brazilian boy pass plane went into the flat spin and went down, and that historical data was available probably within 30 minutes of me actually seeing the video online and being able to go and see it. So that was really cool.
Nice.
I mean, very tragic, but also cool to actually be able to see how it unfolded in real time. In historical data was nice.
And
nice
something I haven't really talked about much is that there's now a deep link feature in SkyGlass. We're still kind of going through the testing and shoring this up, but you'll notice it's in time travel mode. So if I click here, it's going to put the deep link on my clipboard, and then you can share that with a friend. And if they've got SkyGlass, they hit the deep link, and it's going to load up this place, this time, this traffic area. And so you can quickly sort of do a share of an incident.
Super cool.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you for covering that.
You bet. So if you have any questions or comments, especially, feel free to drop that in the chat. That'll get recorded and I can pick those up later. Tomorrow we will be covering the Pro level features, and the next day after that, Pro Plus. Definitely come back if you want to get a deeper understanding of that. And then if you've got other questions, we can talk about any level at that point as well.
Are those different subscription levels?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So the basic is like $7 a month. And there's always a deal that I've, a couple of % off or something. Usually several times a year we'll do discounted codes. And then there's the Pro and the Pro Plus. Pro is $19.99 a month. Pro Plus is $24.99 a month. And that really gives you expanded weather features, airspaces, 3D airspace, and Overwatch. Overwatch is really, I think, the biggest deal to create geofences. And then as part of the geofencing, there's a logging. So you can set up a geofence, put it on auto refresh, walk away from it, come back, and it'll actually log anything that penetrated that airspace and put that into a CSV file with some deep links. So you can actually go right back into time and check that out. It's put a lot of effort into the Overwatch. I think it's a pretty cool feature.
And you're covering that tomorrow or Thursday?
Yes, we'll cover Overwatch tomorrow.
Okay, cool.
Overwatch is the geofencing. Yeah, so tomorrow, 3D airspace, animated weather overlays. We didn't even talk about weather today. Geofencing, and then part of the Overwatch is watch list alerts as well. So you can turn on alerts for your watch list aircraft, and when they come on, you can get a little ping, and then also into a log file, etc.
Hey, a quick question. My son flies Black Hawk helicopters for the military.
Cool.
Can I like put a watch list on his aircraft and get notices or when he's up in the air?
Absolutely. I would imagine that, and again, I'm not a veteran. I don't have any personal experience with this, but is he assigned a specific aircraft, or does he rotate through? Okay, cool. Yeah, have him give you the hex code or the tail number, and you can search that in the database, put that in your watch list, and then know exactly when he's up and down.
Very cool. Thank you.
Yeah, and you can go, with flight history reporting, which is part of the pro level stuff. You can look. You can do a 30-day roll-up of where he's been, see all his traces. Again, if he's got his transponder on, which military they like to turn them off if they're in country, which is totally understandable. But if they're doing training and stuff like that, they're usually transponding. So yeah, cool. Thank him for his service. That's really cool.
All right, thank you. I'll let him know. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm sure we have other veterans here too. Thank you guys. I've really fell in love with the veteran community because I've interacted with a lot of them through my experience with SkyGlass, more than I ever have in my life. And I really do appreciate all you people, all you guys and girls that do that work, and the first responders. There's a lot of people that do good service out there, and I thank you. It's a pleasure to keep building tools that help those people get their job done. So anyway, any other questions?
Yeah, there's a question in the chat about the next 2 days videos. Are those going to be recorded? Bradley's got a work conflict. Funny thing about that.
Yes, I'll be recording all sessions. Not sure if today's session got interrupted after that 1 hour, but I will record them and post them. So yes, we're going to cover all three, and then I'll do this again, this three-parter. We'll see how this goes. So far, I kind of like the format. We'll see how it goes, but we'll do it again at least once a month, if not before then. But again, if you have a specific question, you want to work a problem, feel free to reach out to me. We'll book some time. We'll do a Zoom session or something else, and we'll get to the bottom of it. Happy to help. Awesome. All right. Well, if that's it, really appreciate everybody being here today. Let me stop the share. Where's this? Oh, I can't do it. Where is it? There it is. Stop share. Okay, great. So I can look at you in the face. Thanks everybody for your time. Appreciate the all the input. Great suggestions today. We got a couple of really good, cool features that may be built from the comments that came from today. So I really appreciate that. Thank you. Awesome. And we'll see you all tomorrow. Yes.
Thank you.
Awesome sauce. All right, guys and girls. Thanks so much. Have a great afternoon. We'll talk soon.